Hi, it's Louise Platt at Spiral Bright Insight. I want to talk about the Capricorn full moon, which is taking place on the 10th of July. Now, this is happening in the evening for us in the UK, but obviously it will depend where you are in the world. And it is when the moon is in complete opposition to the sun at 18 degrees and 50 minutes of Capricorn. So we have the sun in Cancer, we have the moon in Capricorn, and we are working with this axis. Now, what I'm going to do in this video, and I guess I should also just say I'm a galactic and an intuitive astrologer, so I will bring in a lot of the fixed star energies, and there are quite a few in the chart, but I also work very intuitively. So rather than kind of showing you, I am going to show you the chart, but rather than going through each sort of aspect and each energy sort of, one by one, I'm just going to pull out some of the energies that are talking to me and I feel have got insight to share. And I'm hoping, as with all my work, that I appreciate there will be some things that I say that you are hearing elsewhere. I expect if you're watching my channel, you are, you're following other astrologers, as do I. I think everyone has a voice within this field, and it's always amazing to be able to hear other perspectives. So there will be repetition, there will be duplication, I have no doubt, but I also like to think that I can bring something slightly different, something new, and something that maybe you hadn't considered before as well. So yeah, as with all my content, use your discernment. If it's not for you, move on. No hard feelings at all. But also, kind of feel into what I'm saying and see if it resonates for you. And I usually say this at the end, but if you do find my content valuable and useful, I do have a super thanks button and a PayPal address, and I'm always really, really grateful for donations, because creating content for this channel, it is an absolute passion, but it does take a lot of time. So I'm going to show you the chart in a second, and I'll highlight a few things that I want to talk about, but just to kind of bring in kind of an overview. And again, I say this in most of my lunation videos. When we get to the full moon, we are working with the completion energy. Full moons are when the light of the sun is shining, its full strength on the surface of the moon. So we have, we can see the moon in its entirety, and there is a real sense of completion, of release, but also of wholeness, and wholeness through working with the energy of the sign that the moon happens to be in. So this, in this case, is in Capricorn. And, we are releasing, we are letting go, we are sort of bringing things to an end, and that is very sort of in tune with the full moon. But there's also, because the light of the sun is on the full surface of the moon, we are also able to see things that perhaps we weren't able to see before. And so when we're working with Capricorn, obviously we had the new moon in Cancer earlier that was at the end of June, actually. And, I invite you to go back and watch the video that I shared about that energy. The sun has also made its way, it's gone way past the midway point of Cancer. And we're working with Capricorn energy. So Capricorn and Cancer, for me, create this beautiful axis, which I see as a pillar. Now, we are working with the cardinal signs here. And if you think of the cardinal energies that cut across the wheel, we have Aries and Libra. They kind of go horizontally, whereas Capricorn and Cancer are vertical, with Cancer at the base of the wheel and Capricorn at the top. So when we get round to Capricorn in the chart, we have got almost as far as we go in terms of height. If you think of Capricorn, it rules the 10th house, very linked to Saturn. It's the archetype of Saturn, and it is at the top. So it is energy that, we're going to be looking up to. Capricorn really represents status, achievement, reputation. And it's also very linked to the father energy, to wisdom, to mastery, to maturity. We kind of work our way around the wheel through the different archetypes of the signs as a journey to discover ourselves, individually, initially through Aries and Taurus, you know, working through Taurus embodiment, kind of the physical expression, the senses, then into Gemini, it's about communication and connecting, then into Cancer, we start to explore emotions and where we've come from and so on. By the time we get to Capricorn, it's almost like we have made it, you know, we have achieved something. This is like Capricorn is the definition of success and achievement. But often it is a sign that we are always looking up to because of this kind of status energy that it brings. And because it's at the top of the chart, I often see it as a bridge because it is as far as we can go, I guess, you know, visually, before we start to come back round and we move through the other signs and the other parts of the chart back to, you know, a unity merging with all that is before we are then reborn and move back into Aries. So this bridge sort of position is like, you know, we're still in the physical world, absolutely, but we have this connection to our spiritual selves. And once we move past Capricorn, we're going to start to explore what it means to be part of a wider collective through Aquarius, and then the kind of unified, I guess, not ethereal, non-physical expression and part of existence as well through Pisces. So it is a bridge, it's a link. If you think of the pillar, you know, you have to have a really strong grounding in Cancer, a very strong kind of grasp of your emotional expression and your emotional connection in order to work up through the other signs and reach, you know, the heights of Capricorn. But there is also a real sort of sense with Capricorn of you've gone through a lot by the time you get to Capricorn, or we have been through a lot. And that is what it feels like here. We have been through so much. With Capricorn, there is this energy of persistence, determination, resilience. You know, with cardinal Earth, you know, things really do take time. But when it happens, when it comes to fruition, when you get your results, then it is something that is really long lasting. And Capricorn is also linked to legacy and something that we create, that we build, bring into form through the cardinal Earth that is going to last forever, potentially. So, you know, there's also obviously the patriarchal system is a big part of Capricorn, but also that elder, that wise, that sort of master type energy. And, you know, if we're thinking of the patriarch, you know, father time, you know, very linear energy potentially, there's also the crone if we bring the divine feminine into it as well. So, you know, you've got all of these energies, all this kind of wisdom, all this experience culminating in this sign. And this is what it feels like as we move through and towards this full moon. We're starting to be able to see where we have got to. We're starting to be able to see tangible results. We're starting to be able to really start to grasp this bridge, this metaphor or symbolism of a bridge between two states of being, between our physical form and everything that we have come to and everything we've experienced, and the next stage, and moving into the spiritual, moving into a higher dimension, a higher stream and place and realm of consciousness. It is also about sort of, if you think about this pillar and connecting to, you know, the base of the pillar to move up to the top, it is connecting to all that wisdom that may lie within. And of course, when we're working with Earth, this can be in the physical body, but it can be in the physical realm, within the Earth, within Gaia, within our bodies, but also something that is kind of being brought through from our ancient past, our ancestors, our roots, our lineage. Again, something that is rising up through to kind of culminate at the top. And it's almost as if we can't kind of make that step, cross that bridge into what comes next without pulling on, calling on and relying on where we have come from, all that past wisdom, all that wisdom, again, you know, the knowledge, you know, the gold that lies within us, all the experiences that we have been through. It's almost as if, you know, we get to the point where and I've talked about this in a few videos, where all the timelines start to sort of blur and merge together, and we are able to access all the different versions and parts and aspects of ourselves in order to make this step into what comes next. And the other thing I really love about Capricorn, and I was sort of reflecting on this as I do, you know, I'm often trying to think through what I'm going to say before I come on and video and film. I was thinking of Capricorn as with the connection to the earth, but also the connection to the bones and to structure. And if you think of the skeletal system, or the skeletal structure, the bones within our body that kind of give us form, that keep us upright, you know, without our skeleton, we wouldn't be able to stand up, but we wouldn't have that connection to the ground. You know, we wouldn't be able to stand up and have the connection with our feet, the soles of our feet and the bones in our feet connecting to the ground, and then the skull, you know, connecting as the access point for that higher wisdom, that higher divine light, you know, the source energy, the crown chakra. And it is this column through the bones, through the energetic system, the chakras, you know, and all the different layers that is absolutely critical. And, you know, there is appreciation for that at this time, at this full moon, and an understanding that to really master this process of ascension and creating the bridge and moving into a higher way of being, into a high level of consciousness, requires us to be fully in physical form. And again, I've talked about this, you know, ad infinitum in other videos, but it's almost like, you know, it is the bones that carry the DNA, that carry the wisdom, you know, the bones that have, again, you know, that we can access from other lifetimes, but it's the wisdom from other lifetimes that we carry in our cellular structure, the cellular memory that we are calling upon now to be able to, I guess, help us move forward. And, you know, that is, it just feels like so ancient, this full moon, and a real sort of nod to our ancestors and the wisdom and all the times, all the experiences, you know, all the love, all the trauma, all the pain, all the joy, all the emotion. We're kind of pulling on that through Sun in Cancer up through us, you know, to connect and create that bridge. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot of reverence here with this full moon, and it's almost like a check-in point to really see how far we have come. And I remember talking about the full moon this time last year, and sort of feeling, and maybe I don't know, you know, I'm sure I mentioned this in the video that I would have done last year, but talking about with Capricorn, it can often feel like, you know, you're standing at the base of the mountain and you can't see what's at the top, but you have to have this faith to keep on going. It's like that kind of perseverance, that resilience, you know, that determination. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to plug at it. I'm going to do the work because I know it will kind of give me the results in the long term. Capricorn is long-term energy. I kind of feel like with this full moon where we're at, and I'll talk about some of the energies in the chart in a second, that it's almost like we can start to see the top of the mountain now. We can start to see what it is going to look like, or maybe not see with our eyes, but we can start to feel. And again, you know, there is such strength in the power of emotion and the power of feeling when it comes to, I guess, working with energy. So that feels important as well. But what I will do is I will share the chart, the kind of traditional chart. I'll highlight a few things and I'll come back to the screen and talk to you about it. Okay, so this is the chart for the full moon. You can see Sun in Cancer, Moon over here in Capricorn. Ignore the house placements, obviously, because that will change depending on where you are. But there are a few things that are really worth highlighting in this chart. And if you've been following me for a while, you will know that I work with certain asteroids, certain dwarf planets. I don't tend to necessarily choose which ones I'm working with. A lot of them come in either through clients or through charts or through things that I read or see, you know, other people talking about, and suddenly they're like boom in. And I have been working with the Sphinx for quite some time. So this isn't the first time I've talked about the Sphinx, but what is really cool in this chart is how the Sphinx, and this is the little glyph for the Sphinx here, is at 21 degrees of Capricorn. So very, very close to this full moon, and it's in retrograde. So whenever we have a planet in retrograde motion, we are really kind of going within, and that in Capricorn, the Sphinx is connected to ancient Egypt, but also to ancient wisdom. There's always this sense of, we want to get rite of passage. We want to be able to kind of make our way through to where it is that we want to go. But obviously the Sphinx in the myth had a riddle that anybody who wanted to gain access to Thebes had to answer the riddle. And if you didn't get the answer right, you weren't going to get through. And obviously it didn't end very well. But if for those who do get the answer right, they have rite of passage. And in Capricorn, it's like, okay, where are the answers coming from? They are in our bones, they're in our DNA, they are in the earth, they connect to the ancient wisdom of our forefathers. They're bringing in that crone energy, they're bringing in the kind of father time, that ancient master energy, but pulling it from within. And I think this is a real nod to I guess have an awareness of, an appreciation for just how much we actually do know. We may not be conscious of it, and this is retrograde energy, so it may be very buried and quite hidden, but we do actually know and remember a lot more than perhaps we realize. And it might be a time when, with this full moon, that we are remembering parts of our ancient history, our ancient connections, connecting to our ancestral lines and the ancestral wisdom that they hold. And again, these are always just themes that I present, but that feels very, very powerful. And if we look over here, we have got the South Node in Virgo next to, well, fairly close to Mars in Virgo. I mean, that's a fairly wide conjunction. But South Node is trine the moon. So again, South Node in Virgo, it's more validation that we are calling on something from our past, something that we brought through to unlock at a certain specific time to help us move forward. And of course, with the North Node in Pisces, we're pulling on something ancient within our bones, within our earth, within our physical embodiment, that is deeply connected to healing, to sacred service, to devotion, and that is going to help us transmute a lot of what we no longer need, to help us to move forward, to come into more unity consciousness, to come into a state where we have more compassion, where we are more aligned with our higher self, with our spiritual expression, where we understand that we are not simply a body, a 3D vessel, that there is so much more to our reality and to our existence and to our experience. And it is this truth that we need to really grasp and start to work with and live in order to move forward. And this is the role of the North Node in Pisces at this time. So that is really, really relevant. And actually, I'll just mention that this, I was working on a client's chart earlier, so I just popped this star, and this is Alkes in the Crater constellation. This is Galactic Astrology, but you can see, it's very close to the South Node, and South Node has now moved past Crater. It's very close to a trine with the Sphinx. Although again, slightly wider orb than we might, or that I would normally use. I tend to use a 2-degree orb for fixed stars. But this again is ancient wisdom from a divine feminine perspective. Crater is the chalice. So this is gifts of a sacred kind of form that have been passed down through many, many generations, through many sort of levels of your lineage and your ancestors, in order to almost bring in service at this time. And that just feels absolutely stunning. And then down here, we've got a trine with Osiris. So again, ancient myths coming through, a connection to Egypt, but also to Atlantis. It's said that Osiris was Atlantis, and that a lot, again, this is just a story that I was kind of creating for a client very recently. But, the whole story of Osiris being, dismembered and cut into many pieces, murdered by his brother, and all those pieces sort of being spread out, scattered, is very much linked to Atlantis, because that is essentially what happened. A lot of the Atlantean wisdom was taken at the fall of Atlantis and spread out. It was scattered, it was fragmented, it was broken up. because it was, I guess there was a lot of fear that it could be used to create more collapse, more downfall in the future. So it was spread out. And the story of Osiris, and of course Isis, his wife, who is now 11 degrees of Gemini in this chart, there is this beautiful story of her going out to collect all those pieces, to bring them back together, to resurrect something. And that for me just feels really profound, because it's almost as if with the trine to the south node and to the Sphinx and to the moon here, we are bringing back, we are resurrecting, we are reassembling pieces of lost knowledge, lost wisdom that we can bring together to use to serve in divine, sort of devoted, sacred honor, but also bringing in this past, ancient wisdom that we have kept holding on to, to be able to access and unlock at the perfect time. And, the chart suggests that we are, if we're not here already, we're certainly building up to that very closely. So that is stunning. That's a grand earth trine, yeah, beautiful. It's bringing in a sense of stability, something very tangible, very real, very present. That is, that there's something really tangible taking place at this full moon. And what else can we say? We've got Mercury at 13 degrees of Leo in a beautiful trine to Ceres at 13 degrees of Aries. We've talked about Ceres quite a few times in recent videos, and this, is stunning because it suggests that Mercury is bringing through the wisdom of Ceres, bringing through the message of Ceres, which, Ceres in Aries, she is independent, she is sovereign, but she's also very much the warrior. So she is standing up for the rights of those that perhaps, have been suppressed, have been subdued, have been lost, who have been taken, into the underworld, just like her daughter. There is grief here, there is sorrow, but there's also this kind of beautiful presence and soothing energy that, yes, is quite fiery because it's in Aries, but it's also like this tough love, this mother energy, seeing us through to help us stand on our own feet. And with Mercury here, Mercury's bringing through the messages and the wisdom that Ceres has to teach us. So that feels gorgeous. And the fact that 13, is the number of the divine feminine. So again, there's some really strong divine feminine energy coming through this chart. And we've got Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius in a square to Black Moon Lilith. So again, something is being brought up from the depths, Black Moon Lilith connected to that divine feminine, that rebel energy, the energy that, they tried to silence, they tried to suppress because it was powerful, because it was raw, it was primal. But no, those days are gone. This is rising, and Black Moon Lilith is in forward direction here, seeking something from the depths that has been buried, that has potentially been hidden, very close to Hecate. This is the witch energy. We've got the crone energy coming through here, magic, the ability to stand at the crossroads and to be able to see which direction you want to go in, and to kind of help us through deep times of transition as well. So yeah, that just feels really, really powerful. And of course, the square is creating this tension, this push to really force something to come to light. And it's, again, because Pluto is retrograde, yes, he's an Aquarius, yes, it's a sign of the people, but it's also internal. It's this is something that's coming from within, from the depths, that is actually going to, or absolutely going to, affect us all, because Aquarius is the sign of the collective. So wow. And just to highlight as well, Uranus is at 0 degrees of Gemini, approaching Sedna, in a trine now to Pluto. They've been in trine for a while, but now Uranus is in air. It creates even more strength. There is more flow. There are ideas, activations, awakenings going on. And Uranus won't actually conjoin Sedna exactly for some time, because, I did check earlier, he will get to 1 degree, but he won't quite get as far as Sedna is sitting. But this is activating wisdom from the depths, something that has been frozen in time, something potentially linked to betrayal, to being disconnected, to being cut off, that is being brought back online. And again, that is, it's the themes of just really overlap and complement each other so beautifully. Yeah. really, really stunning. So I think that is all I want to say about this chart. So we'll come back to the camera. And yeah, let's talk quickly about some of the fixed star alignments. Obviously, I mentioned Alkes in the last section. What really strikes me with this particular chart is the fact that the moon is very close to a star called Sheliak in Lyra, and it's also very close to the ring nebula. So the Lyran ring nebula. There is the square to Tau Ceti. We've talked about Tau Ceti quite a lot. Gemini, Venus in Gemini is conjunct the Hades. So I will talk a little bit about the energy of Hades. Mars is opposing Achenar and Anchor. So there's some beautiful elemental, very magical energy coming through Mars with a square to the Great Attractor. Neptune continues to be opposing the supergalactic center, so we don't need to bring that back into this video. Jupiter is conjunct Sirius B, so I will mention Jupiter conjunct Sirius B. Chiron is conjunct the Andromedan galaxy Vertex 31, so I want to talk about that. And Chiron is also opposing Atlantis. So we've got Atlantis in Libra is opposing the Vertex 31 galaxy as well. So there's definitely some insight to come through there. So let's break it down. So the fact that the moon is conjunct Lyra in Capricorn, again, when I'm talking about ancient connections, ancient wisdom, ancient, everything ancient in the bones, you know, our ancestors, our lineage, there is nothing more ancient than Lyra. When it comes to human galactic history, because Lyra is said to have been the birthplace of the galactic human. This is where humanity was first created, first born, and, you know, over time, millions, trillions, goodness knows, amounts of years, eons of time, you know, our history has evolved, and Lyrans have moved to other places in the galaxy, set up new civilizations, you know, shared their ancestors, their stories, their wisdom, their knowledge, and, you know, gone further afield. But with the moon conjunct Sheliak at this time, there is this real sense of connecting to ancient galactic human heritage and wisdom, and very much bringing in the energy of frequency and of sound, because Lyra is the lyre or the harp. So when we have Lyran connections, either in your birth chart or by transit, there is a really strong connection to frequency and to song, to music, to singing, to telling the story through song, to remembering through vibration, frequency, harmonizing. Obviously, with the archetype of Capricorn, you know, this gives us structure, this gives us form, and it is bringing this form to and structure to frequencies that perhaps have been lost, perhaps they have been disconnected, perhaps we've intentionally sort of moved away from them, but they are coming back at this time, especially with the Sphinx here, especially with the South Node, coming back to remind us of these beautiful frequencies, the harmonic patterns, the structures, the grid, in a very sort of crystalline, physical, tangible form, weaving together in order to help us, I guess, connect that bridge, or serve as the bridge between our past and our current and our future. And of course, with Uranus and Gemini, you know, if you have read, if you bought my Voices from the Stars Uranus and Gemini report, I talk about a lot of the themes of this Uranus ingress in Gemini, one being an activation of deep soul and cellular memories of galactic lifetimes, galactic wisdom, galactic light star codes that are coming online now to almost awaken us from our slumber, to give us this jolt, to help us remember who we are, where we come from, what our history actually is and what it looks like. And this full moon feels like a really big part in that kind of journey. And you can still buy that. I will put the link in the description box below if you haven't got that, because yeah, it's really deep and quite comprehensive. So The Lyrans were fearless, they were explorers, they were pioneers, and they had a really strong connection to the land and to nature and to, I guess, being present. Very deep healing energies coming through, this strong connection to a symphony and to bringing back all these pieces, these harmonic notes in order to, I guess, create this piece of music, this song, this frequency that almost triggers an awareness or helps us to remember. It's almost like awakening to something through the frequency of it rather than necessarily, reading it in a book or remembering it from direct experience. It's like a frequency that triggers this awareness. That is what it feels like. And with Sheliak, Sheliak is very linked to the ability to use words and communication, to express, to tell a story, again, potentially through sound. It's very mercurial in its expression. So again, much more mind-based and bringing the mind and that memory and that understanding through into the physical form, giving it structure, creating harmony, creating some sense of order, which again comes through the Capricorn energy. Accountability comes up with Sheliak. So again, there might be, some sort of Varuna type cosmic law and order coming into play. Very karmic as well. Again, Saturn, Capricorn. I know Saturn isn't here at the moment, but Saturn is ruled by Capricorn. So again, there can be quite a lot of karmic energies coming through at this time that suddenly we can see because of the full moon, and also deep sensitivity, deep appreciation of beauty, of nature, of art, of animals, and a love of freedom and adventure and excitement coming through. So we've got that with the moon conjunct Sheliak. We've also got the ring nebula. This is one of the nebula, often regarded or believed to be a stargate or a vortex, a path to, a route to, a portal to access to other dimensions. So again, we have this potential here almost to shift dimensions at this time if we work with the nebula energy, but it's also the birth of a star, but an understanding that everything has to collapse and die and be destroyed in order for the new to come through. Nebula really represent infinite potential and creativity when we see them in a chart, and really reminders of the cycle and how death and rebirth, is part of everything that we are here and everything that we have experienced. So huge transformation, infinite potential that is coming through. Again, we might be able to see something that we couldn't see before. And then the square to Tau Ceti, again, ancient. Tau Ceti is another star which has strong connections to human galactic history. A lot of the Lyrans moved to Tau Ceti during the wars and the displacement to form civilizations collective there. When we're working with Tau Ceti, there is a real strong kind of remembrance that, we are all connected. And when you have strong Tau Ceti in the chart, there's often memories or an awareness and understanding how we all are connected. It's like the mycelium, of the trees, the network. We are all connected, we are all alive, and we're all kind of giving each other feedback energetically all the time. There's communication going on. It doesn't have to be physical through word or voice or even sound. It's something that we tune into and feel at a very energetic level, bringing frequency in, which again is the key here, I feel. With Tau Ceti, there is trauma, there is displacement, and with the square, suggests that this is something that is coming up again for a lot of people to experience. And of course it's not hard to see how a lot of that is playing out in what a lot of people are experiencing in real time. But there's also this beautiful energy of the whale and the ocean and the depths and the wisdom of the waters and that mother energy, that nurturing, that womb space. The fact that often we have to go into darkness in order to be transformed. With the womb, I'm always reminded of the story of Jonah in the Bible, and that sort of time when he was swallowed by the whale, and this was almost like a rite of passage for him. The square to Sphinx, it's like there may be a time of darkness, there may be a time of deep shadow, of deep grief, of loss, but again, that is part of the process of transformation. And it's something that we have experienced time and time again through history. It's about honouring that, I think, and understanding, particularly if I bring Venus conjunct the Hades in, this is, the Hades are often known as the weeping sisters. So Hades in Galactic Astrology is a very high frequency star. It is a cluster, but it really ties into weeping, sorrow, grief, Hades connected to the rain, and which obviously can be very cleansing, bringing in nature, but also sorrow, washing away sorrows, washing away grief, but also acknowledging it and feeling it. Hades reminds us of the pain of separation, and that might be, in this present moment, or it might be something that we are relating to our past, our separation from our true selves, from the understanding, from the knowledge, from the wisdom, from our higher selves. But it also gives us strength through being vulnerable, through connecting to and feeling the emotions, which is what the sun in Cancer is also reminding us to do. That is really important. It's helping us to release and process inherited trauma. Not all souls are able to do that. So a lot of sort of higher frequency souls come in and are able to do that for others. And again, that is possibly something that is going on at the moment. But it's also exploring how alchemical grief can be, and sadness and sorrow, if we really tune into that emotion. So there may be a sudden emotional purge at this time. And again, I think it's happening already, and it is happening in real time. But again, with this full moons are times of deep emotional sort of experiences. So that may be something that we are experiencing. And of course, with Venus, there is a real strong attraction point, magnetism, but also, Venus is what we love, what we value. So it's about being able to almost value the grief and the sorrow and understand that it has purpose. And that is always something that I talk about. But yeah, there's a definite catharsis taking place at this time. I also want to talk about the Vertex 31. This is conjunct Chiron, and it's opposing Atlantis. So the fact that Chiron is opposing Atlantis just to me says that there is a huge healing taking place that links back to ancient times, and it is very much connected to Atlantean times. But Atlantis, it doesn't have to be uniquely about Atlantis. This is a healing of our past. These are wounds that we have carried through many, many, many different lifetimes, many timelines, many incarnations. It is coming up now to be healed. And with Atlantis in Libra, there is a new sense of balance and peace and harmony coming into play. But with Chiron in Aries, gosh, it's taken a lot to get here. Chiron in Aries is the spiritual warrior. It's had to really work through, an understanding of who that am I, what is my place, what is my purpose. And again, this is something that so many of us have worked with, that have wondered, have been seeking insight and wisdom. And again, it feels like we're getting to the point where actually we can understand why we're here. We can understand the purpose. We can understand why we feel so strongly about stuff, why we feel so passionate about all of this. So the Vertex M31 is interesting. It is described as the Andromedan galaxy Vertex M31, but it is not actually in the Andromedan star cluster. So because the word Andromeda is there, and because it shares a similar point in the zodiac, I do pull in similar archetypes. This is about freedom. This is about transformation. This is about liberation. Perfect. Chiron, the wounded healer, understands, as he meets with this point in Galactic Astrology, that seeking liberation from our wounds, from our trauma, from all that kind of, inherited stuff that we've been carrying is part of the healing. That is part of the healing journey. But it also brings in this connection to frequency, to energy, to light work, to light codes, and information, insight, wisdom that is not of this world. Galaxy Vertex 31 takes us way beyond the mundane 3D experience, understanding, knowledge. This is taking us way beyond, and it's almost like we need to pull in those aspects of ourselves, the multidimensional, the galactic aspects, which Uranus in Gemini is helping us to unlock. The Sphinx is bringing, it's like we've got this convergence of the future, of the dimensions, of the realities with the ancient past all coming together to almost help unlock, to help us process, to help us heal, to help us move forward, to serve as the bridge. It's like we have to kind of go through all this if we are able to liberate ourselves and move forward and step up into that next level, that new reality, to achieve, to get to the top through the Capricorn full moon. Definitely in uncharted territory when we've got Galaxy M31. Very futuristic, very non-linear. And again, that is part of the healing. It's like being able to access all these different levels, remove linear time, remove structure, remove the need to understand and come up with logic and rationale and a scientific explanation. No way, that's not happening here. And it helps us to move beyond the limitations. And again, we have been trapped, within the 3D, within the mind, within the matrix. And this is starting to break apart. And again, in my Uranus and Gemini report, I talk about the matrix and the entrapment of the mind, and how I see this ingress and this transit as a real opportunity to let go and to break free of that. So it brings expanded consciousness, higher awareness, vision, and yeah, very, very exciting. Also bringing the spiral in here, and the understanding that the spiral, we may feel like we're almost going back on ourselves, and we may feel like, oh, we've been here before, how can we be back here again? But with the spiral, yes, you come back to the same place, but you are in a different setting, a different dimension, a different perspective. You've got new knowledge, you've got new wisdom, and you can bring that and feed that through, and that feels really important. So although you may be coming around again, you're not coming back to exactly the same place, in exactly the same frame of mind, and exactly the same level of consciousness that perhaps you were before. And that is the difference. That is how we evolve. That is how we move forward. And of course, the spiral is such a key symbol in all of nature, in all of reality. Just happens to be my logo as well, and my name. So yeah, that feels really, really beautiful. I also want to talk briefly about Jupiter in conjunction to Sirius B. Now, Jupiter is going to be activating the Sirian frequencies all year. Well, until probably, I haven't checked the exact dates, but Sirius A is at 14 degrees of Cancer. Jupiter is currently at 7 degrees, so activating Sirius B. And this is the water planet. So this is really, really beautiful. This is bringing in this connection to, again, ancient wisdom of the waters, of the oceans. And again, we're working with the bones in Capricorn, but we're also working with the waters, and the waters have consciousness. The waters remember. The waters carry light, frequency, information, codes. And this just feels so beautiful. So we're kind of combining the physical, the earth, the bones, with the waters, the oceans, the emotion, the flow, the structure, the form, bringing it all together, kind of bringing that, working with that polarity in order to meet in the middle through this full moon and this full moon energy, which is about integration and balance. In order to feel whole, we need to access all of it. And with Sirius B, there is ancient wisdom. Sirius is said to have very strong links to Atlantis, to ancient Egypt, to healing, sacred geometry, astrology, all these beautiful modalities, connection to Lyra as well, probably a connection to Tau Ceti. And of course, we're bringing in the whales and the ocean here. Again, it's just all there. It's all feeds in, it's all layers, and it just all complements and aligns really, really beautifully. But yeah, we have this kind of, this invitation to connect to the waters and the wisdom of the waters. And, acknowledging, again, with Sirius B, there's often this feeling of alienation, of not fitting in, of not kind of getting it, of not being of this earth, of being somewhere else. And again, that may feel even more expanded as Jupiter moves over this point. But it is to remind us that, the more we feel out of place, the more we feel that we don't fit in, that we feel odd, it helps, or it pushes. And again, this is from my experience. I've got moon conjunct Sirius B at 7 degrees of Cancer. So Jupiter is right on my moon. It has forced me, with Chiron in Aries as well, to really explore and seek out who I am, who I was, who I have been, who I can be. That identity, that self, that sense of I am, the self. And it is through that seeking that I have unlocked so much wisdom. And again, this is what Sirius B really wants us to do. Almost to create this discomfort and this feeling of like, oh, I don't fit in. So who am I, and why is that? And where can I fit in? And we're creating a world where we can all fit in, where we can all feed into this wider collective, this beautiful kind of, cohort, this tribal unified consciousness and understanding and approach, again, that comes through the Pisces North Node, that comes through Pluto and Aquarius, that comes through Uranus and Gemini, that comes through the moon and the Jupiter in Cancer. And yeah, it's just all these beautiful energies all working together to help us remember ultimately our roots, our wisdom, and the mastery that we all carry and that we all have access to at this time. And I want to just offer as a gift for this full moon, I have recorded a special guided meditation. I did a version of this at a retreat that I sort of spoke at a couple of weeks ago. I have re-recorded a version of it and I would like to offer it as a gift. So there is a link in the description box below. You just need to share your email address and you will get access to the link. Obviously, if you don't want to be on my mailing list, no hard feelings at all, you can unsubscribe. But yeah, that is how you get access to this guided meditation. It's about 11 minutes long, takes you on a journey to connect with the Sirius B energy and also with the waters within yourself. I hope you enjoy it. You know, it felt very special to me to be able to share it. And I got beautiful feedback from the people that were at the retreat who were there to experience it in real time a couple of weeks ago. So just a reminder, my Shapley Attractor, Unlocking the Shapley Attractor course is now available. Lots of people have signed up and are doing that course and getting a lot out of it. So I invite you to explore that. Sign up for my mailing list if you want to be the first to hear about other things I have in the pipeline. I feel like there's a lot going on at the moment. Lots and lots to talk about, lots to share. And yeah, I've got lots of ideas coming as well. So yeah, there's going to be a lot coming through in the future. But yeah, just I guess coming back to this full moon and remembering that it is the form, the skeletal kind of form, that the body, the bones that are a conduit for light. And it is the bones, the skeletal, the physical vessel that is the bridge. We cannot make this jump into the higher way of living, higher consciousness. We cannot ascend without the bones, without the system, without the form and the structure. And this moon is really reminding us of the importance of that, the value of that, but also the importance of bringing back and bringing through this ancient wisdom, which we all have within our bones. So many of us have disconnected or forgotten about it, or it's been suppressed because it was too risky, too threatening, too powerful. We're starting to remember, and this is how we move forward. So thank you as always for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. Lots to say as always, but yeah, I will leave it there and I will be back soon. Sending lots of love.